Hi, hello. Um, it is May, um, which means it is Ehlers-Danlos Awareness Month. And the last time I did a video like this was probably back in 2019, so I figured I would do an updated video. This is the same Ehlers-Danlos Awareness Month challenge that has been going around since 2019. It is 31 questions that are meant to be answered one question a day in a social media post. But I don't have like the brain capacity to like remember to do a post every single day. So I'm just going to answer all of these questions right here, right now. Um, so let's get to it. The first question is, what type do you have? So what type of Ehlers-Danlos do you have? There are, I believe, 13 or 14 types of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. The type that I have is hypermobility type, which is the most commonly diagnosed type of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Um, but I do also have a genetic mutation on the ADAMST2 uh, gene, or yeah, gene chromosome, um, which is associated with dermatosparaxis type. Um, and I do have a lot of features of dermatosparaxis type. Uh, uh, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Wow, I have brain fog. I can think through this. Dermatosparaxis type Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is like fragile, doughy skin, a lot of like repetitive skin, wrinkles and stuff like that. I do have a lot of that all over my body. Um, Not as severe as some other people with DEDS. So I have like a very mild presentation of it, but I don't technically have the diagnosis despite having the genetic mutation for it. Um, when were you diagnosed? I was first diagnosed with hypermobility type in 2018, I believe. Um, it was a time when I was like really sick and I was just getting diagnosed with a whole bunch of things like gastroparesis, POTS, Ehlers-Danlos, and everything was just like falling into place or like falling out of place because I was just getting sick all the time and like I could not keep myself well. So that is when the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome diagnosis came into play. I eventually got uh, genetic testing done in late 2019, early 2020 ish time. Um, and that is where I found out that I do have that ADAMST2 variation. Comorbidities is question number 3. And the comorbidities that I have include I just listed some. POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or dysautonomia. I also have um, gastroparesis, so like my stomach is paralyzed, and I get my nutrition enterally and parenterally through IV nutrition, through a central line, and through a feeding tube as well. Um, I have hemiplegic migraine, astigmatism, which I mentioned in the 2019 video, and I'm going to mention it here again. Your eyes are made out of collagen, so if you have faulty collagen, you're going to have probably bad eyesight because your eyes are probably really faulty, and that's what I have. I was told by an ophthalmologist, that's a word, ophthalmologist, that the some of some of the things this is very technical. Some of the things that hold the lens in place in your eye. So you have like, I don't know how to describe the anatomy of the eye. I know how I can describe it when I look at a diagram of the eye. but you have a lens in your eye, like right behind your cornea, and it is held in place by tissue made out of connective tissue. And that connective tissue in my eye is very flexible and very easy to stretch. So I was told, don't be surprised if your lens just flips. And I was like, okay, great. If my lens just flips, I won't be surprised. I probably won't know what's going on, other than I won't be able to see. So, thank you, eye doctor, for not making me feel better about this at all. Um, anyway, other comorbidities. Um, Nothing that relates specifically to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Um, there's like the trio of things that you get with Ehlers-Danlos, which is Ehlers-Danlos, POTS, and MCAS, which is like the holy trinity or the unholy trinity. I have not been diagnosed with any mast cell disorders, although I do have a significant amount of allergies and I'm constantly on antihistamines. So that is probably why I have never actually been diagnosed with any mast cell disorders, because I'm constantly on antihistamines. That is, yeah. And that's how you treat the disorders anyway, according to my allergist, is just by taking antihistamines. So I I'm already being treated for it if I have it. Um, how hypermobile are you? I am averagely hypermobile. I don't know. What does that mean? I have, like, on the Baton score, I score an 8 out of 9 on most days, because my hamstrings are always so tight that I can't touch my hands to the floor. But I have, like, my pinkies bend backwards, my elbows bend backwards, my knees bend backwards. Bend I can do the thing that you're not supposed to do. So I score an 8 out of 10 on the Baton score. Are you stretchy? I am sort of stretchy. Like, some of my skin is pretty stretchy. Not all places of my skin are stretchy, but I do have some stretchy places. Mobility aids is question number 6. So, what mobility aids do I use? I use a wheelchair for a lot of times. Most times. I love my wheelchair. It keeps me from being in pain, and it also keeps me from passing out. I use Twion wheels, which are like the power assist wheels. Super great for my shoulders to keep them from, like, being in pain all the time. Which is the goal of me having the wheelchair in the first place, is to reduce my pain and increase my mobility. I also, when I'm having a good day, I will use, like, my smart crutches. I have the zebra print smart crutches because why wouldn't I? I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and I'm a zebra, so I of course got the themed ones. But I do like the smart crutches for what they do as a mobility aid. They are a lot more ergonomic than using a cane, um, because canes tend to put a lot of strain on my wrist, whereas the smart crutches distribute the pressure across the forearm, um, which is nice, and they're angle adjustable. Whereas a cane is just all weight on one, through on one on your wrist all the way up through your shoulder, and all of that it's just not great. It's painful. Other mobility aids. I used to use a walker. I don't. It's bulky and it's hard to transport, and it doesn't help me. Um, Same with the cane. It's not, like I just explained why I don't like a cane. It's not helpful for me. I prefer my smart crutches and my wheelchair. Question number 7 is just pain management? Question mark. Um, Pain management for me has been um, a lot of, like, anti-inflammatory drugs, like your ibuprofen, Tylenol, and Aleve. And then I also have mm, Mobic, which is a different type of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drug um, that is prescription. I don't take any opioids. Um, I do use muscle relaxers. I use Flexeril. That's a very sometimes controversial thing for like Ehlers-Danlos because it is like you want your muscles to have like your muscles are doing all of the work that your tendons and ligaments aren't doing because my tendons and ligaments are too loose and lax to be able to stabilize joints. So your muscles are doing all the work of stabilizing the joints. But if you relax the muscle, then it's not stabilizing the joint and then it falls out of place. But if your muscles are constantly in spasm, then it's not able to actually function. So that's why I use my muscle relaxers. Um, I also use um, the what is it called? Devil's lettuce. Yeah, I'll call it devil's lettuce. Um, the stinky cabbage. Um, Surgeries. I have had my feeding tube put in, and multiple feeding tube replacements. I don't think those count as surgeries. I mean, the first placement I guess was a surgery, but eh. And then I've had two different central lines placed. The first one was um, the first one was placed like normal about a year ago, and then it was infected, and so very recently I had the second one placed over. First one is on the side, second one's on this side. So there, I have a new central line that's placed. It's very helpful in getting my nutrition and hydration. Hospital stays. Last year was like my biggest hospital stay that I've had due to my illnesses. It was mostly because of my gastroparesis. I was so malnourished. I couldn't get any, I couldn't tolerate my tube feeds. I wasn't able to do anything um, orally. I was losing weight real fast and I was just not in a good place. So I ended up in the hospital for pretty much almost the entire month of May and started TPN. Um, but other than that, I mean, I've had other hospital stays for things like seizures um, and weird brain things because I have a weird brain. Um, and sometimes it makes me not able to see or move for no reason. Still trying to figure that out. It's okay. What is your normal? Is question number 10. My normal is staying home most of the time. I think that's mostly because of the pandemic. Um, Depending on when you're watching this video, right now it is May of 2021, and we are still in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So people are getting vaccinated at this point, but like we're still staying home. My normal for like pain wise, I tend to say that my normal pain on the like 10-point scale is like at a 4. Um, I constantly have a headache, and this shoulder is never quite in its place. Um, a flare for me is like pain reaching at like 7 out of 10. Migraine. I have hemiplegic migraine, so like when I have a migraine, it's sort of like I'm having a stroke. Like I can't talk correctly, and like half my body doesn't work. I guess that's what a flare is like for me. It's usually just a lot of pain and not being able to function. Question number 12 is what specialists or types of doctors do you have? This is a weird question, but I kind of like it. Like it's interesting to see how many doctors it takes to manage a a chronic illness that is really systemic. You know, it's um, this Ehlers-Danlos syndrome affects the entire body. It doesn't just affect one system or the other system. It affects the whole body because it's your connective tissue, and your connective tissue is everywhere in your body, you know? So, like, I have an ophthalmologist, I have a cardiologist, I have a gastroenterologist, I have a neurologist, I have, you know, um, an otolaryngologist, ENT. Um, I have, like, my physical med and rehab doctor who does most of my, like, physical like my muscular skeletal system stuff, and then I also have my primary care doctor. um and so like it's interesting that the healthcare system focuses so much on like specialists and everyone is specialized when really it's a system that all works together, and it all really one affects another, and one each affects the other. um, Especially with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So like I also have like my psychiatrist too. So like um, my stomach medications would interact with my psych medications. So I couldn't like there's so much coordination of care that has to go on between all of these specialists, and they're constant, like they don't always talk to each other the way that they should, or if they do talk to each other, I feel like their communication isn't the greatest. Um, so it's really interesting and kind of annoying, um, that everything is like specialized instead of like treating the whole body as one. Question number 13 is the funniest EDS story. I don't have a funny EDS story. Um, I've never had like party tricks or things like that. I don't really have funny encounters that have to do with my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I don't think. Um, and any story that I find funny that would relate to my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is not a story that I want to share here because it is not like publicly appropriate. Worst doctor experience. Um, I've had a few pretty bad doctor experiences. Not necessarily because of the doctor. A lot of times doctors are assholes. I will say that. I don't. They. Okay. Anyway, those were noises of exasperation. Um, I have had some really bad doctor experiences because of people just saying, uh, because of doctors just invalidating my experience as a chronic pain patient and as a patient with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Um, but I think the worst doctor experience I had was not because of that. It was during the procedure. It was during the procedure of putting in my first central line. I um, I metabolized the lidocaine really fast because Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, it's a very common thing to just metabolize um, anesthetics really quickly, especially things like lidocaine. So I metabolized that really fast, and so I felt everything that was happening while they were tunneling the catheter in my chest. Um, However, I was under a twilight sedation, which is supposed to be like a conscious sedation. Um, but it wasn't like, I think it was a little too much for me. So it was a little bit too much for my twilight sedation, and I was not able to communicate that, ouch, I felt everything that was happening right here in my chest while they were tunneling the catheter and it hurt really badly. So I guess I started breathing really heavy and my heart rate shot up real high because of that. That's what happens when you're in a lot of pain. Um, and my blood pressure went up real high. And they're like, huh, that's weird. What's happening? And they're like, and I was like covered with the drape because they had to, sterile drapes because they had to make it sterile. And they like lifted up the drape and they're like, are you okay under there? And I was like, no. And they're like, "What's wrong?" I couldn't like the medication. The I think it was like Versed and fentanyl was like swimming around in my brain so much, and the only thing I could say was like, "Ouch." That was it. That was it. I was just like, "Ouch," and they're like, "Oh, oh," and so they like put more lidocaine. Um, but I think by the time that they figured that out, the procedure is basically done, um, and I was just in pain. I guess that's both a funny EDS story and a worse doctor experience at the same time. The next question is best doctor experience. Um, Honestly, the best doctor experience I had was over last year. I was in the hospital, and it's the middle of the pandemic. Um, COVID rates are sky high, and I'm in a very high. I'm in a hospital that has like high rates of COVID in the county of my state that has the highest rates of COVID going on. That's where my hospital was, and I was in the hospital, so I was like, oh great, I'm gonna catch COVID while I'm here. But my doctor was, nice, and like I was so malnourished, I didn't know what was going on, and my I think technically he was a student. Um, and I think that might have to do with how he was treating me because I feel like students are more like wanting to be involved with what's going on. So uh, this student doctor was like student doctor med student. I can, it's fine. This med student was like constantly checking up on me and like yeah, that's it was just a good experience. It was just I just felt like I was being cared for and listened to in the hospital in a terrible time, and that just made the whole world of difference for a traumatic period for me. Question number 16. We're like halfway done. This video is really long. I'm so sorry. Happy Ehlers-Danlos awareness. Question number 16. What is your support system like? My support system is very much mostly my significant other. They are my caretaker. They set up my TPN at night. They will set up my saline infusions when I don't have the energy to, which is most of the times that I have to do a saline infusion. They will set up my tube feeds for me when I don't have the energy to do it myself, which is a lot of times. They set up this entire like computer cart for me that allows me to work on my computer from bed because I don't have the energy to leave bed a lot of times. Um, like my significant other is probably my most supportive person and is the like pillar of my support system. And then I have my friends, of course. Um, I love all of my friends, and like they keep me from mentally breaking down constantly. So it's great to have friends that will like talk to you and will listen, and that you can like even in the middle of a pandemic you can still sort of hang out somehow. Um, and like my friends will like take me to doctor's appointments that my significant other can't take me to, or and then we'll like grab a tea at the tea house. So like there's that, and then I have like my siblings in my family. I mean, I don't mean to like brush them off. Oh my god, no. I also have my siblings in my family who they are like a great part of my support network as well, but they're very distanced from me physically. So like my younger sister is away at college. My older brother is out of state. So like they provide a lot of like emotional support via like messaging, and like we have a group chat. So it's really nice to have a good support system like that. Question 17. Do you think Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is expensive? Yes. If I did not have the insurance that I have, I would be in so much medical debt. I would probably, I would never pay it off. I would die before I paid it off. And the insurance that I have is Medicaid. So, yes, Medicaid saves lives, quite literally, and it also keeps people like me from being in debt forever. I mean, I'm still in debt forever, but being in medical debt forever. Question number 18 is, do you consider yourself disabled? And I do. And I don't think disabled is a dirty word. I don't think disabled is a bad word. I believe disabled is an identity that people need to, no, people don't need to, but people can take for themselves once they have found that they are not able to do normal life things that they would like to be able to do, or that would be typical of an able-bodied person, or a neurotypical person, and it's okay to be disabled. And disability, there are like two models of disability. There's like the medical model of disability and the social model of disability, and people always feel like they're at war, you know? Am I disabled by society that doesn't accommodate me and doesn't have the imagination to be able to provide me access, or am I disabled by my illness? And honestly, I'm disabled by both, because even when I am provided access to things, or even if I were provided access, like the entire world were accessible, even in that ideal world, I would still be disabled because I would still have like fatigue and pain and migraines, and those things would still be very disabling for me. Question number 19 is, have you ever experienced ableism? Yes, and I don't think any person who is disabled has ever not experienced ableism. Ableism can be something so small as like your um, your friend or family member inviting you out to a restaurant that isn't accessible, and then being upset that you don't want to go. Or ableism can also be things like, oh, you should just be more positive about your situation when you're having a bad day. And that doesn't seem like ableism necessarily. It's not systemic, and it doesn't seem very harsh or violent, but it's like the microaggressions, the small things that build up. Those are still ableist, and they still have an effect on people. Question number 20. What is the worst part of EDS? I think the worst part for me, for my Ehlers, the worst part for me with regards to my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is probably the fact that I feel like I lost a lot. I no longer drive. I don't have a license anymore. Um, because I no longer have my license because I surrendered it due to my health conditions. I also don't work because of my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It is not feasible for me to be able to work a job, or like maintain a schedule or be able to continue to like working is not something that I can do. It's just not feasible for me. So losing those things and losing things that I loved, like gymnastics, and ballet, um, and swimming, and like running, and all of those like sportsy things. I was a very active person. Um, just like losing those parts of me um, is probably the worst part of EDS, is like that grief. One thing EDS has taken from you. I just listed a bunch of things that EDS has taken from me, so I'm not going to list them again. One thing EDS has given you. Perspective. It's given me a lot of perspective. Before I was really affected by my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or before I really understood what was causing me so much pain all the time, and I didn't really understand disability justice. I also didn't understand how crappy the American healthcare system was. That gave me a lot of perspective on that. Yeah. So I think Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, if it's given me anything, it's given me some perspective. Um, Question number 23, something you wish everyone understood. I wish that everyone understood that Ehlers-Danlos syndrome affects everybody differently, and people who are disabled by Ehlers-Danlos syndrome are often disabled dynamically. So things that are really bad on one day are not necessarily really bad another day. So I can have like a really bad day with pain in my hips and knees and ankles on one day, but then have an okay day and be walking around the next day. Probably not the next day, but like a few days later. Not it's not always. It doesn't always look the same day to day. 24. If you could rid yourself of one Ehlers-Danlos symptom, which would it be? Um, it would be really nice if my shoulder would just be where it's supposed to, like exist inside of its socket where it's supposed to exist. That would be great. Question number 25. One person you're grateful for. My significant other. They are the most incredible person I could ever ask for in my life. Thank you. 26. Scariest part of your future with EDS. I think the scariest part of my future with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome right now, there are two things. One is I'm currently on TPN, which is really bad for the liver and kidneys and like the rest of your internal organs. And there's also a really high risk of like blood infections. So I guess like a scary thing about that is like while it's giving me the nutrition that I need to survive, it could also like quite literally kill me. So that's like, you know, scary. Um, but for right now, it has increased my quality of life. It has improved my quality of life. So I am okay and glad to have my TPN. The other scary part of my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is that because I have so many complications, I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to have like gender confirmation surgery. I know that seems like trivial, but as a trans person, gender confirmation surgery is a life-saving procedure. It is a very important procedure for me, and like not being able to access that due to my other disabilities is very. It's something that I have addressed in therapy with my therapist, but it's not something that I have fully come to terms with if that is something that actually happens. 27. What are your health goals? Currently, my health goals are to just have quality of life. Yeah, basically, don't die. Don't die and be able to smile while not dying. That those are my health goals. Have you ever met someone else with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome in person? Yes. Yes? I feel like I have. It would not make sense for me to not have met someone else with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome in person. I just cannot think of who that person is because of my brain fog, but I believe I have. If there was a cure for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, would you take it? Um, I feel like that's weird because Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a genetic disease. Um, it's a genetic disorder, you know, and this sounds a little bit like eugenics. This sounds a little bit like eugenics, like a little. I don't know how I feel about that question. How do you make your invisible illness visible? My illness actually isn't invisible at all. It is quite visible. I have tubes sticking out of my body. I use a wheelchair pretty much every day, or I use my crutches. I don't hide my illness, and it has never been invisible. It is something that is quite very visible for me. Um, and question 31, what does awareness mean to you? When it comes to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I, at this point, awareness to me means um, not just that not just that more people know about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but I hope that Ehlers-Danlos syndrome awareness means that more doctors are aware of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and will research and will be more competent in caring for people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, because there is a lot of care that is not done well for people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I would like for that to change. There's a lot of people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and we we get mistreated by doctors a lot, and it's not great. So that's what awareness means to me. It's not just people knowing about EDS. It's also care improving for people with EDS. So anyway, this is a super long video. Oh my god. Um, that was 31 questions about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I hope uh, if you watched all the way through this, congratulations. I think you deserve a nice, cool glass of whatever your favorite beverage is. Um, Maybe some of your favorite type of nutrition or snack. And you deserve a hug. I would give you a hug, but this is a video screen. That's not how hugs work. But know that I am sending you a hug from my central line to you. Um, anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a very good day, and